Tell us what the book is about.
Yeah, the book is actually about my own experiences of going from broken relationships. And I started dating when I was 15. I've been married. I've been in dating relationships and a long-term one. And all these experiences were before I became a Christian.
Yeah.
And when we're broke, as I said, you know, I grew up and I was quite broken from watching what my mum and dad had been through, and living in a home of fear where there wasn't enough love, and that really affected my own identity and self-image, and it conditioned me with certain responses with relationships. So I kind of got into this idea that, you know, if I could just find the right guy to love me, I'll be okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that made me quite vulnerable to dating the wrong types of men, because any man was better than being single and dealing with my own wounding and my own loneliness. And so I found myself in a cycle of broken relationships. So I talk about that, and I speak in a language that I think women today can understand. Women that tend to find themselves in destructive dating, destructive relationships, or, you know, hurtful partners, tend to have the same sort of language, with the type that say things, oh, nice guys are boring, and if he loved me, you know, if he didn't love me, he wouldn't say that if he didn't mean it. And so for the first 19 or so stories, because I wrote them in short story form, I talk about the blame, lies and excuses that women accept or say to themselves in order to keep that relationship going, because often there's a fear about being on their own, and also, will they find anybody else?
That's right.
And so we tend to sort of listen to the lies and excuses, and sometimes we're just not aware of perhaps that we're in something abusive, and the emotional abuse in itself has eroded our confidence to believe in our own opinions, that what's going on is actually wrong.
That's right.
And so we don't have that confidence to set a boundary and say, no, this is wrong and I need to leave this. So for the first 19 or so short stories, I tried to capture the most common experiences that maybe women in these scenarios...
What are some of the books?
Broken, the second half, Broken, speaks about the more the consequences of going through some of those type of relationships. So they cover some of the more broken sides of losing my sense of worth, and some of the damaging choices that can come from that, and I speak about those in that section. And the last section of the lessons that I started to learn when I became a Christian, because often there's a case of, oh, I'm saved now.
Yes, exactly. So I'm all right.
I'm okay. Yes, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes. And actually, even though I'd been born again and I'd been filled with the presence of God, His love, and I'd been cleansed and given a new heart, the renewing of the mind was the next stage. And so I wrote about some of my experiences of growing in my dating life after becoming Christian.
So give us a few examples of the different things that you wrote about, some of the experiences, some of the first segment of the book. Give us some
well, this one might be useful. He's not ready for commitment. So often women will hear a guy say, I love you, but I'm not ready for commitment.
And lots of people say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you find that the women want the commitment.
That's
you know, they secretly want it, and they secretly want the man to ask him to marry them, but he won't say it, and so they're hoping and waiting.
That's right. So they enter into that hope, and I don't always think it's a wrong. If someone's not ready, we need to make the distinction between someone that's genuinely not ready and wants to pursue the dating a little bit more, but is quite invested in a relationship but doesn't want to rush it. I think that's a good thing. But the person that is saying, I love you, but not ready commitment, but is expecting a full relationship with you, like you're married. So the woman ends up giving more and more of herself.
A big fly in the studio. Just buzzed in my ear, sorry. Go ahead.
So women may, so the guy that says he's only your friend, but is treating you like a girlfriend.
Exactly.
The woman that's giving her sexuality, her heart, and the man is not asking for her hand in marriage. So the woman, because the guy's not ready for commitment, but he's not leaving the relationship either, and then the woman ends up waiting and waiting and waiting and giving all of herself. And then the next thing is why bother giving her commitment if he's received all of her
exactly
without it?
Exactly.
So I talk about that experience there, because I went through that on many occasions, of thinking that if I gave everything I had, then that would motivate him and encourage him to love me more.
But by that time, he's already had everything, like
That's
you
right,
said, and
absolutely.
he doesn't need to make a commitment.
And
that's what happens most of the time.
Yes.
But then also, on the other hand, some people will eventually get married after 15 years of living together and doing all the things that they're doing, like if they were married. And then the marriage doesn't last that long. And so they will say, well, a marriage is only a piece of paper, and, you know, I've known people to have this. But that's the devil, isn't it?
I think there's probably some habits and patterns that have already been set up beforehand. You know, I would really encourage any woman of faith to really see the mission and the purpose of marriage, and to see themselves as holy. There's only two things a woman can give a guy, and that's her heart and her body.
Yes.
Once she's given them, there's nothing else to give.
That's right.
And God wants us to see ourselves as He sees us, you know, that we are holy and pure. We're a separated people. And He wants us to really get into that sense of identity of who we are, and to wait on Him. He will answer the desires of our heart. Now, I know lots of women say, well, there's not a lot of men in the church. But, you know, it's being able to walk in that holiness with God and not compromise even when our circumstances are looking bleak.
That's right.
And if you've received a message from God, a promise from God that marriage is for you, I say seek God for His promises, stand on that, even when the circumstances are looking bleak. But first and foremost, see yourself as God sees you. Put that stamp, get the stamp of God's approval on your life. Cherish yourself as pure and separated and holy in God's sight, and see marriage for what it is, and prepare for it. You know, if you believe that you've been called to marriage, get ready for it. Do what you need to do. Become a good communicator, become a whole person, be in the right place so that you can receive God's best.
Right.
And I think if we spent more time on that, we may not see as many of these broken marriages, and where people are sort of saying, well, if it's not working, I can just throw it away and trade somebody in for somebody else. You know, we can start putting back the importance of marriage. But where I'm coming from now is not marriage preparation, but dating preparation.
Yes.
Be dating prepared so that you can form some good habits in dating, and you can form, you know, you can, because we can often, you know, produce lots of bad dating habits and take those into marriage.
Well, what are some of the bad dating habits?
Well, this would have been one of them, when we were sort of compromising and giving up our values, not being able to set boundaries, not being able to work through conflict. So as soon as a conflict happens, we walk away and say, well, I'm not dealing with this, and go and meet somebody else.
Yes.
So we never actually learn how to deal with conflict, because conflict's going to come up in marriage. And dating often gives us an opportunity to practice some of those skills.
That's right. That's really interesting. Now, obviously, you were going to give us a couple more examples before we go into something else. A new love will make me feel better. Yes. Now, this side of is where I very often used to come out of a relationship. The relationship would break up, and I'd be quite broken, and I'd start to feel that intense loneliness of not having that person there. And I would go into a rebound love. So instead of giving myself time to heal, I'd be thinking about the next person. I hadn't invested any time in my healing, how I was hurt, what needed to heal, and I hadn't looked at my patterns, my responsibility, about perhaps why did I choose that type of partner, or why was that issue there. So I never learned from my mistakes, and obviously that kept me going around the same mountain, repeating the same mistakes. So this message is about my experience of thinking, you know, I was very set. Back then I was into the clubbing scene, you know, going out there partying and clubbing. So as soon as I'd had a breakup, I was out there looking for the next man, thinking that that would take away the pain. And all it did was add to it. That's right. Because more brokenness produced more hurt. That's right.